Hello everyone, my name is Michael Aspden and I will be here to teach you about 3D printing today. So you might be asking yourself, what is 3D printing? 3D printing is the use of additive manufacturing, which is the process of putting small things on top of small things to create a final product. The most common use of 3D, the most common application of 3D printing is rapid prototyping for companies. They When I worked at a Lord Corporation over the summer, I was using a lot of their 3D printing applications in order to create in-house solutions for certain products. One of the projects that I had is I created brackets for the bottom of a product that they had so that it would stop scraping up the bottom of the product when it was sliding and they were doing testing on it. Certain things that you use in 3D printing are different types of plastics generally. Those are referred to as the filament. So you have three types that I've worked with. There's PLA, PETG, and ABS. PLA is pretty strong. It's kind of a pain to work with, but it generally is reliable. ABS is very simple to use, very easy to work with, but it's very brittle and hard to get off certain supporting structures, which I'll talk about later. PETG is, I think, a relatively new plastic that's being used. It's kind of a hybrid between the two. It's very strong and it's easy to work with, but that's just kind of the basis of what's used in these applications. I first started getting experience back in high school. I went to Millbrook High School here in Raleigh, and I took some drafting courses where my senior year they actually had one of these 3D printers. It was a MakerBot, and I was able to get the chance to use it. And so we would design things with Inventor. It's a computer application for 3D modeling. That would then go and it would go to become an STL file after you design the part, which kind of creates it into it's a standardized 3D part. And then from there, we would take it to a software, which in this instance was Makerware because we were using a MakerBot. And so that takes it and it converts the 3D model into, it's called G code. It's a type of code that's used in computer manufacturing, such as those big instruments that rapidly produce the same part over and over and over again. It's a series of code on a computer that tells the machine how to move and what to do in order to create the final product. And so what happens there is that you are telling the head where to move and where to place down the filament in order to create the final product. And so that was my experience back in high school. I then, ever since coming to NC State, I've had access to D.H. Hill and Hunt Library, which both have places where you can use these 3D printers. The price in these things has gone down significantly since I started working with them back in high school. So it's become a much more affordable thing, whether in industry or even as just a hobby if you wanted to pick it up and just try it on your own. Some really big place that actually has been using this a lot and trying to implement it is NASA, believe it or not. On their International Space Station, they've been using it to create just kind of tools that they would need up there because it saves a lot in the weight when you are launching up space shuttles and ships in order to instead of having to bring a select amount of tools with the ability to create your own tools up there, it allows a lot more variety and everything. So the this has other applications as well. And there's certain startup companies that are working on using additive manufacturing and 3D printing to create houses actually. They use cement, which they would typically pour in a thing in order to create a foundation of a house, except in this instance they're using the cement along with a very, very customized specific 3D printer which can print houses by layering cement and patterns around a large area. this could provide really low cost houses, and it would be actually a pretty solid implementation of 3D printing that not a lot of people think of. Another huge application is in prosthetics and medical areas. They the typical way in order to get a prosthetic fitted for somebody is to use a cast molding thing where they'll kind of wrap this. It's very uncomfortable from what I've heard. This like mold around the part that is missing, and then from there they can create. It's called a bucket that kind of sits around the part that is missing in order to connect to the prosthetic. And so by the use of 3D printing and 3D scanning, which you can use to scan around the area instead of making somebody sit through having to wrap things around them, you can, one, cut down on the time, and two, you can cut down on just the uncomfortableness of somebody going through that situation. Overall, there are a lot of different ways that this technology can be used, and I hope that you all get to use it at some point because it's a lot of fun. Thank you all very much. This has been Michael Asp then, and I hope you all have a great rest of your year. Goodbye.